Hello, everybody! This is episode 3 of Wild Ramblings, and it's a topic I like quite a lot, isn't it, Matt?
It is indeed.
So, today's topic is quite in the news the past year or so, maybe even 2 years, and people have been talking about it for a good while, and this is about Lynx reintroduction. I have made a video or two on the channel about Lynx before, especially covering the topic of the illegally reintroduced Lynx that were dumped in the Highlands of Scotland. We'll cover that at some point of this. But yeah, it's gathering steam. You've seen some of this stuff as well, haven't you?
I have indeed, yes. And, I mean, not just Lynx as well, there's other ones, but we'll come on to those another time. But yes, Lynx is certainly the one that, even from like when I was in uni for my bachelor's, it was the one that was being spoken about the most. The most plausible of any Predator releases in the UK, but is still controversial to some degree, which is why Definitely. I think one of the reasons why it's a great topic to discuss.
Absolutely. So, for those of you following the channel, you know that my biggest goal in life is to assist at some point in some way to help get apex predators back in the ecosystem. Those of us that understand ecology realize that you always need to have these animals, these organisms in place. Every member of the trophic ladder needs to be in the ecosystem, or else things ain't going to work right. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't come up without issues, as Matt will tell you. There's a lot of people that would potentially be against even Lynx, which have never attacked a human in recorded history. A wild lynx has never attacked a recorded human? A human in recorded history, which I think is crazy. Perfectly capable of doing that, taking down animals same size as some fully grown men, but they just never bother with people.
Well, they are quite a shy species, you know, being solitary, being so shy. The habitats that they live in is not one that humans are normally found in or around, necessarily.
As much as, like, other places.
Exactly.
You know, like towns, cities.
And grasslands, even, you know. Over history, you know, humans have been slightly more grassland-based species than woodland, which is where you would normally... most woodlands of some description is where you'll find lynx, so...
Yeah, so I guess we can go over a species profile for a moment. So,
yes.
The Eurasian lynx, the largest member of the lynx genus, so there's 4. There's the bobcat of America, the Canadian lynx, they're the 2 New World lynxes, and you have the you have the Iberian lynx, which is one of the smallest, and obviously, the most beautiful, the biggest, Eurasian lynx. Now, Eurasian lynx were native to the UK. It's debated when they went extinct. Some people say as late as the 1800s, which is from some of the sources we both found.
Yes, it's an odd one. It was from sources that claim that some quotes that are talking about cats, like cats of the mountain, that sort of thing, was originally thought to be talking about wildcats, which, understandably, you know, they are still in the UK just about, and that's why probably people would initially thought that that was the species they were talking about. There are people who suggest that that was actually talking about lynx that were still in the UK. It
is very, very possible. A lot of animals end up turning up when we thought they'd long gone extinct in a region, and considering how elusive this species can be, it's not surprising. There are people that have lived alongside lynxes in very or relatively high population densities that have never seen one in their entire life, which is incredible. But the lynx as an animal, it has, as I said, never attacked. None of the 4 species have been known to ever kill a person in the wild, and I don't think even in captivity they've ever killed a human being, which for an apex predator, especially the Eurasian lynx, that's really appealing for reintroductions. If they've never attacked a person, that gives it more PR, good PR, in the realm of like, hey, it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to attack you, which is fantastic. Obviously, even animals that are more likely to attack you, like, mine favorite, wolf,
Mm-hmm.
it's only marginal. Like in Canada, only one person since 2008 has ever been killed by a wolf in Canada. No one in the lower 48 states has ever been killed by a wolf. And you have to go back 40 years in Europe, the entire continent of Europe, for anyone to have been killed by a wolf here. Which is, again, that is a bigger animal. They live in packs, more than capable of taking down animals many times their size. But a lot of predators just don't want anything to do with people. And the lynx is probably the poster child of the 3 big apex predators in Europe that just don't want to be around us. It's a fascinating creature. So their main prey, they'll be feeding on roe deer. Roe deer are one of our 2 currently around still native deer species here in the UK. They don't so much bother with red deer, maybe a small hind, which is a female red deer, or a baby or a calf red deer. But they're not believed to, and there's no evidence to suggest they're really going to impact red deer populations at all.
Certainly not through predation. Potentially through fear factor. Potentially, but the fact that they've co-evolved alongside each other, and they're not really a big predator of the red deer. There's not a lot that can. It's like if they smell a badger. Yeah, like a red deer's not going to shy away from badgers being in the area. No.
But if it's like, oh, this is a lynx or something in their instincts, it's not going to tell them to avoid this. But for roe deer in particular, certainly, they are the main food source. But they'll also go after young wild boar, hare as well. Hare are a big thing. And considering the brown hare is not native to the UK, that could also be helpful in a farming way. But we'll get to that, because you mentioned that briefly before about how lynx could actually help farmers. Because one of the biggest hurdles is trying to get farmers on board for any reintroduction, honestly. It's such a nightmare. But yes, to give you more information about the lynx, because wild ramblings, as I am doing right now. The average Eurasian lynx is around 19 to potentially 30 kilograms on average. The higher estimate of that is a lot rarer, especially in the subspecies that you would find in the British Isles and potentially in Ireland. We're still not 100% sure if they were native to Ireland. It's very likely they were, but not 100%. But some of the biggest Eurasian lynx, say in the Far East, in places like Siberia, and just Russia in general, these guys can get up to 40 kilograms. So the weight of a large dog. My dog Stark is around 40 kilograms. She's a big girl. And a cat that size sounds pretty formidable. That's bigger than some leopards out there.
Yes.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But the ones we would be reintroducing hypothetically, potentially in the future, fingers crossed, they would probably be closer to the 20 kilogram mark, which sounds formidable for a cat. Again, not really hazardous to people. But I've been rambling so much about this animal. I would love Matt, tell me more about the lynx that you have learnt.
So, I mean, firstly, we do have quite differing views, I think, on this subject. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm totally against the reintroduction. However, there are certainly many points that I think do need to be taken into consideration before it's put into place to reintroduce. So I'm more on the fence rather than completely anti or completely yes, let's go for it. So I thought I'd get that out there first. It makes for a more interesting debate as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, if it wasn't already clear, I'm all for it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it 50 years ago, tomorrow, anytime, as long as we get everyone, get farmers protected, give them the right help.
Yes.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting, certainly ecologically, it's certainly an interesting debate, but it's certainly, I would think, from an ecological point of view, it's needed. But the way that the UK, with its habitat matrix and how farming is is, done in the UK, with it being very different to it being on the continent, I think there are some hurdles to jump over before we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a very good way of looking at it. So we can look at it first, like, why are people talking about reintroducing this animal? We have people that hunt deer. Surely, a lot of people listening to this might think, oh, we've got the hunters. Why do we need a wild apex predator?
Efficiency.
Well,
for one.
Yeah. You don't have to pay a lynx. You don't have to pay lynx to do that job. They're also, again, apex predators are permanently part of that environment. They don't leave to go home into like a house. They don't have to travel to like a city and back again to do this hunting. A lot of people do live in towns, cities, villages, and then commute to hunt. But these are animals that are leaving their scent. They're leaving carcasses in the environment. They're doing so much that a human hunter can just never replicate. And it's very hard for a lot of people, especially those in the British deer stalking community, to understand how a cat like this can outclass them in certain ways, especially with the smaller deer.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing to consider is, for people who don't necessarily understand the issues in the UK as to why, the belief of Lynx being reintroduced would be brilliant, is our apex predator currently in the UK is the badger.
Yeah.
Now, I cannot, and I don't think anyone will ever see a badger trying to take down a deer. And our deer numbers, particularly, well, just any of them, realistically, but, roe deer and the 3 of the 4, I'd say, introduced deer species have exploded in numbers, which is causing absolute havoc with, just our general ecology and our habitats.
Any plants.
Yeah.
Practically any plants. So, when it comes to our deer, we can go over them. As we've mentioned, the red and the roe, they are our native deer that we have roaming across the country. They've been here as long as, well, actually, no, some of them were reintroduced because they almost went extinct. Sorry, I'm rambling here. Anyway, so the roe and the red, they are our native deer. They got here on their own without our help, whereas all the other species that are currently here have been introduced. So those are the muntjac, the smallest species of deer that we have here in the UK. Yep. Perfect lynx fodder.
Yes.
Perfect lynx fodder. Very small. Perfect meal. Probably last a good few days.
Also will not have grown up with lynx necessarily.
Yeah.
To a degree they might have done, but not necessarily all of their distribution. So it might also be a case of, muntjac will not be as used to a lynx chasing after it, and so muntjac numbers might plummet.
That is a good point. Naivety.
Yes.
So a lot of animals, even if they have co-evolved with the lynx and other apex predators, if they've gone generation after generation without knowing or living alongside these, which is another thing that I've covered in when I'm writing this thing on wolves, little secret for now for people. Animals that have gone many generations without being exposed to apex predators, they are naive and thus might not exhibit the behaviors we're expecting them to for maybe a few generations or a few interactions where they're like, that's eating John. Okay, maybe we actually have to stop, standing around whilst they come, knocking around, which makes sense. But yeah, muntjac deer, they're from Asia. And that is part of the Eurasian lynx's range, but not potentially all of it. Yeah. Because there are some species of muntjac that just don't come in contact with lynx. But they do come in contact with other species of cats, especially big cats, like leopards, so there could be something there. The other small species of deer from Asia, the Chinese water deer. Yes. Which
it's probably the one that we're least worried about because they're not got very high numbers, I don't think, in the UK, especially compared to the other 3 introduced species.
Exactly, and when I was researching them, they're actually endangered in the wild.
Yeah, so we might actually have a population that could restock
the
natural set. Maybe it's a positive.
Yeah, so when it comes to those guys, up in the air, but there are other deer species we do have to worry about. There's the fallow deer, non-native, introduced from, I believe, the Mediterranean stock of fallow deer. So before the last ice age, we did have fallows, but they went extinct after the last glaciation period and never made it back without our help. And this subspecies was never present in the UK. They are larger than a roe, smaller than a red, so it is up in the air. Probably the occasional fawn would be taken, but I doubt adults would be tackled by a lynx. What's your opinion?
Don't know. I mean, maybe the hinds again. You're saying if they take on a small red deer hind, then certainly a fallow being smaller, I think could potentially. And again, it might be the fear factor again, especially if with fallows on the continent, they might. There's potential.
Again, come across lynx as part of the
But the fallows over here haven't had that experience for many hundreds of years potentially. So again, it could be a case of grown naivety from not having to worry about it.
Honestly, part of me thinks that our fallows are going to reach a bottleneck and die anyway, because they're horrifically inbred.
True.
the fact that you see... we need to make a deer episode with...
Yeah, probably.
The sheer, amount of, white ones you see.
Yeah.
Recessive genes, that's super recessive. They're extremely inbred. But I personally think that they are a bit too big, too herd-living as well.
True, actually.
So...
That's another thing why the roe deer is such a favourite prey of lynx, is not only a lynx solitary, but some for the
most part, roe are as well.
Yeah, especially during the breeding season.
They prefer to be alone.
Yeah. Having said that, when I'm back home on the family farm, I usually see anywhere between 6 and 12 roe deer at a time all together.
But maybe.
But that might be because of
there's no apex predators.
It might be because there's no apex predators and also not enough land, habitat in the landscape for them to spread out more.
Yeah, and if there's plenty of food and less predators around, there's less need for them to compete and shove each other out of certain ranges. Another issue here in the UK. So the last figures I saw in total for all of our deer is around 2 million. In total, I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that number is too high. I don't think it's about the number. I think it's those densities.
Yes.
So Matt has been talking about the fear factor. So this is the landscape or ecology of fear that apex predators exert on their environment. Shut up, phone. I should move that thing. But so when an apex predator is permanently present in an environment, like your wolves, like your lynx, and in certain areas your bears as well, they elicit different reactions from different organisms in their environment. So deer keep on the move to limit the potential chance of them being attacked by an apex predator. This is what the lynx can give us for those species.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the other... we also have Sika deer.
Sika deer is the last one.
I've met Sika deer in the wild, semi-wild. They are... I met them in Nara, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
They just look like not a hand size, but I could pick up a Sika deer, but I couldn't pick up a red deer. They just look like a smaller version of a red deer. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I reckon yes, a big male tom Eurasian lynx could definitely take on a. Is it still a hind when it's a Sika?
Can't remember.
Well, a female Sika deer. I don't think that'd be too much of a problem for a tom. Definitely calves and maybe even a smaller or younger juvenile stag, because they are, again, they're quite small. But again, they are big group living animals, and that does deter lynx quite a bit. I'm trying to think of the other species.
That is all, I think.
We do have reindeer, but they're just one feral group that are occasionally. They're so tame you can walk up to them and scratch them on the head.
Yeah, they're not really.
They're not reintroduced. They're not wild. They are kept in a fenced area, so I wouldn't really call them a reintroduced species. And they did used to be native.
Yes.
But killing them off again. Poor things.
Yeah.
But even if they weren't, they're way too big for lynx.
Yeah.
in the most part.
Again, it'd be calves, wouldn't it?
At calves. But, it kind of adds up. If you have enough of these lynx throughout the country in different spots, these areas would become most likely less popular for these deer to calve in. So that is one thing to look at as well.
Yes, definitely.
But we've been talking about deer. They also eat another animal.
Yes, and it's certainly a species that in the UK has become very widespread.
Mm-hmm. This is the human child. No. No. So another prey species for lynx is the red fox. Now, I love foxes. I think everyone has some sort of admiration for foxes. Maybe certain individuals who have chickens who've had them stolen by foxes might feel differently.
I've had the experience of that from a farming perspective, but I've got nothing against a fox.
Yeah, foxes, as a fox does. But they are a mesopredator.
Yeah.
And so that landscape of fear effect that we mentioned before, what bird was that?
Blackbird.
Yeah, fantastic. Just, if you heard that bird, then Matt just identified a call from outside the window. Very impressive stuff.
Not really.
Yeah, I think it is. Personally, it's like speaking a language, I reckon. Same thing with deer, the landscape of fear. It also impacts mesopredators. So mesopredators are those medium-sized, smaller predators that eat animals, but they're also eaten by something else. Foxes and naturally badgers would also be a mesopredator, but as it currently stands, neither foxes nor badgers have predators of their own here in the UK. But in a healthy...
To a degree, that's not true.
Well, occasionally eagles take a fox, right?
No, badgers will kill fox cubs. I've seen it with my very own eyes.
Well, that's cubs.
I know, but it's a similar with like lions and leopards in America. In Africa.
You know what? They've got so many as pets over there.
In Africa, it's a case of two competing species. If you get any chance to take out
a competitor,
taking out a cub is the perfect way of doing it. And a badger, literally, there was one day, back on the farm, this fox cub was being way too curious with this badger.
Oh, no.
And I'm not kidding. This badger literally just, by the scruff of the neck in its teeth, just shook it, and just killed it just instantly. Just shaking it. It was quite interesting to see.
Definitely interesting.
Not something you really want to see, but
that sounds horrific. Even my mental image.
They will. Certainly, a badger would rather take on a fox than a fox take on a badger.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't normally do so, other than in that instance where the fox cub was just being silly, really.
But still, they're not really a predator of each other.
Not
they're more
regularly.
like... They're kind of like... They've partitioned to slightly different niches anyway.
Yes.
Badgers mainly eat worms and mollusks, whereas foxes are good generalists. Hence why they're found all over the world, especially the red fox. So successful.
Yes.
Big ups to the red fox. Good on you. But, so they don't... Apart from the occasional golden eagle going after a young fox, which does occasionally happen, badgers and foxes don't really have any natural predators in the UK currently. But with introduction of apex predators, this would change how they behave, and the apex predators, like the lynx, would suppress foxes from breeding so much in rural places. Now, it's not going to affect urban foxes. Urban foxes have a free go of things.
Yes.
As much as I'm impressed by lynx and wolves as well, bring them into it again, they're not going to enter towns and cities to hunt foxes. So that's all to do with the amount of food that foxes are getting. But they help with rats.
Yeah.
About 30%, 20 or 30% of an urban fox's diet does consist of rats. So imagine how many they're actually suppressing. That's pretty useful.
Yeah.
The rest is garbage. But when it comes to our rural foxes, which there are lots and lots of foxes, this can help suppress the population, especially in those wooded areas, which in turn does help out a lot of ground nesting birds that might be impacted by the inflated foxes. Because the foxes, they're also unnaturally, their numbers are inflated by introduced pheasants.
Yeah.
And red grouses and driven grouse moors.
Yeah, red-necked partridge is another one.
Exactly. So all these non-native birds, they give a boost to foxes, allow them to make more kits. I believe it's kits and cubs.
I think it's cubs, isn't it, for foxes?
Oh, we gotta Google this. I know cub is definitely one, but is it fox kit as well?
Can't say I've ever heard that before, but
Oh,
I'm not going to doubt you.
fox kit. I'm Googling. Yeah, kit.
Okay.
A fox kit, also known as a cub or a pup, is a young fox. Nice.
Right.
I heard it a long time ago, and it just came up out of the recesses of my brain.
Oh, okay.
Not that it really matters, but yeah. So, if lynx are present, they become such a stress for foxes in that area, if they are actively predating on them, that the foxes have to basically act a lot like the deer.
Yep.
They have to be a lot more cautious and careful in certain areas for fear of being predated on by lynx. Now, when I went to Slovakia, this is going to be a big theme here because
yes, it is.
A few years ago, I volunteered with the Carpathian Wolf Watch, and we tracked both wolves and Eurasian lynxes and gathered morphometric data on their paw prints, any kills, DNA samples from said kills, so on and so forth. One thing I did notice was that even though there was plenty of lynx in that area, we put up a camera trap and we got a lot of foxes. So it potentially, if the sheer amount of deer in the area are high enough, they might never really bother with those mesocarnivores.
Yeah.
So that's also interesting to think about. But who knows? Apparently Slovakia has less biodiversity than us. And that was a
Wow.
plantation. Yeah, I know. I looked at that big list around the world. Slovakia is lower. Even though they do have those apex predators, I guess like some other forces that are affecting that country made it less biodiverse. But we are digressing. Or by we, I mean me. But yeah, it makes it really hard for their foxes to get enough nutrients to find food and have babies, and potentially, it sounds sad, but it's a natural process. Females are more likely to not carry pups or cubs or kits to term, and maybe not even provide, or the cubs themselves are predated on by this apex predator. It's all very, very possible. And by having it in the location, it helps smaller mammals, it helps ground nesting birds, it gives them a fighting chance in a country that is very off-skew. Again, wouldn't eradicate foxes, impossible to do that via just reintroducing an animal that was here before, but it would help. It
Certainly
would
help control the numbers, yes.
Exactly. Especially where they are present. But yes, anything you would like to add to what I've rambled on about? Whilst you do, I'm going to turn on the light. It's getting dark in here.
Yes. I don't think I've got anything necessarily to add on foxes, but to do with deer. We were talking about, there being the density of deer is having an impact on our woodland and forest areas. One reason why bringing lynx back would be a good thing is to help the regeneration of these forests. It's well documented that the UK has got one of, if not the lowest density of woodland in European countries.
Ireland is slightly worse.
Slightly worse,
yeah.
but yes. But the UK is down there at the bottom. It's 13.5% coverage of our land mass is woodland.
Well, it's not even just woodland, it's tree cover.
Tree cover.
So
yes.
that includes just random trees in the countryside,
Okay.
which don't necessarily make a woodland.
No.
It has to be a bunch of trees together to make a woodland.
Yes, and that is the habitat that the lynx likes the most. So that's one of my cons to the reintroduction potentially at the moment for lynx is not necessarily for us, but for the lynx itself. Is there actually enough space, enough suitable habitat for them to be introduced into right now?
See, now this is a really good question, and I do have answers.
I thought you might.
So, Matt asked me this before, or he stated this before, and I was like, oh yes, I'm prepared for this, I'm prepared. So, yes and no. overall, the UK is so treeless. It is ridiculous, and this leads to all sorts of things like flooding, soil erosion. That's another thing for another day. But, you are absolutely right. We do not have a lot of trees. But we do also have a lot of trees densely packed in certain locations. So, the prime location that is touted by many organisations that want to reintroduce them are Kielder. So the Lynx UK Trust a few years ago, I'm on the fence about those guys. I've heard some things. I don't know 100% if these claims are true, so I'm not going to spout them here. But they identified this location, and a lot of other organisations agree. It is a plantation. It is almost entirely non-native trees, laid out in a very artificial way, very neat and tidy. That's not nature. But lynx don't care. Lynx, wolves, apex predators, I have noticed firsthand in Slovakia, the place that I saw or found these animals or their traces, it was all plantation, unfortunately. Which overall, plantations are very bad for biodiversity, but when it comes to apex predators, as long as there is prey available and a relatively suitable habitat, now obviously natural native woodland, especially rainforest, that would be the best situation for lynx. But as long as there are trees, there is cover, and there is food, they don't really mind too much. And in Slovakia, in the Carpathian Mountains, a large portion of the woodland is the exact same as what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and especially the plantations here in the UK are mainly other European conifer trees. Now, bearing in mind the distribution of the lynx, parts of, across Scandinavia, Siberia, some of those tree species that are native to those areas are grown here in plantations. So I think from that perspective, you're right, it's not going to bother them because it's almost natural for them because they are used to those trees and that surroundings in other native parts of their distribution. But it's not native to the UK, so that it won't bother the lynx in that respect. But in terms of our diversity here in the UK, plantations are not a great thing.
They're not a great thing. We still need them. We still need them for timber and paper
absolutely.
and whatnot.
Just be nice to use more native.
Exactly. Like, what's wrong with the Scots pine? Other countries use Scots pine as timber plantations, but we use other trees. I don't. It doesn't make sense.
No, that makes no sense to me.
I'm sure there's some forester that'll be like, well, actually, we grow this here.
Yeah,
I don't care.
It's probably to do with climate.
The sediment of the soil and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to take into consideration.
There are, but at the same time, we just need to treat it like sustainable palm oil does. So sustainable palm oil, like abroad, they've got actual natural habitat going in amongst the plantations and linking up natural healthy habitat.
Yeah.
And it increases the biodiversity of all the space, and it's fantastic. Why the hell are we just no, we need a cube of this species and nothing. If you see a dandelion, stomp on it. But no, so a lot of the plantations, which make up, unfortunately, over half of all the tree cover in the UK, non-native trees. Oh, it annoys me so much.
Yeah.
But these places are still fantastic for lynx. And you won't really get lynx much outside of wooded areas. They'll go into scrubland, but they are pretty much woodland specialists.
Yeah. And I think that is one of my concerns for the lynx itself if it was reintroduced into the UK, because I just, like you say, we've got Kielder's the one that has been touted as the main area, but other than, I don't know, forests in Scotland or, forests further south in England and the UK, there's not many large areas of woodland where I feel that they'd be able to stick to, which would then mean that they're having to come out of their more natural habitat into more open areas, which then could potentially lead to clashes with people that could be more damaging to the lynx than to the people.
Potentially.
So that's a potential thought for the lynxes.
No, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So they will occasionally wander into farmland, but it is extremely. How do I put this? In places like Scandinavia, there is a lot of worries, or a lot of the farming community there talks to the farming community here and says don't do it because we constantly lose sheep to lynx and stuff like that. But they go on to mention that they browse and graze their sheep often inside the forest, but the ones that do it on the open landscape rarely ever have lynx attack them, which is quite interesting. So they are, even though there is food right there, just a couple, like 100 meters away within eyeline, there's that instinct within the lynx, probably because it co-evolved alongside bigger predators like wolves and potentially more ancient species. Like, oh, I don't want to go out there where I'm more vulnerable. Sticking to the trees is better.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to the forests, the woodlands, I reckon in general, as a nation, we need to link up a lot of these spaces anyway.
Yeah.
And this will help grow those from the inside out. So by helping the trees be able to regenerate, the forest regenerate, essentially you're pushing the forest with the species from within, which is great. It's also where they kind of fall short.
Yeah.
So one reason I am always like touting the wolf as a reintroduction instead is because they don't need forest, they don't need woodland. They can exist in pretty much any terrestrial habitat we have here. But the trees and the plants will come alongside them, that's their strength. But with the lynx, they already need that. So I reckon if we do reintroduce them to prevent inbreeding and that slow process of the forest actually spreading, we would need to kind of do what South Africa does with painted dogs and things. Mm. So, like I was part again of a program in South Africa, in Zishlu, in Mfolozi National Park. And unfortunately, due to how fragmented painted dog populations are, they physically have to move individuals and packs from one area to another to allow gene flow. Mm. So I reckon that's something we would have to do.
Especially at the beginning.
At the beginning, yeah. But this is a long-term process.
It has to be. It's just a case of when that process starts and how much they need to be able to start, I think, is potentially...
I don't know. The average habitat.
Well, the average range of individual lynx. What's its home range?
Let's see.
And whilst you look that up, I just want to also mention, this forest regeneration that could come as a result of reintroducing lynx would be a benefit to other species that are really struggling in the UK. And one species that I saw highlighted was the nightingale. Now, a nightingale is, to look at, quite a drab bird, I'll be honest. It's a little brown job, as the birders call them. It's just a small brown bird, but it's not really known for its beauty as such. It's more for its call. It's very famous for how lovely a song it has, and if ever anybody listening has been lucky enough to hear one, it's crazy. I've never heard it in person myself, but I've heard recordings online. It is wonderful. It's one of those natural sounds that would be really nice to have back in larger numbers, and if the lynx was to play a part in that, then I'd be all for that bit.
Well, this is the thing.
And that's just one example.
That just one bird as well, because there's essentially any species that loves this habitat type, especially ones that need older forest. They need it to stay healthy for longer and not be degraded over time.
Yeah.
They're going to benefit from apex predators, and we've seen this already before across the world in places where they've returned. Again, it's in Yellowstone.
Yeah, Yellowstone's the classic example.
It is, and the amount of passerines.
Yeah.
There's two main groups that really benefited: passerines and birds of prey.
Yeah. Because
a lot of the birds of prey eat the passerines, and also the small mammals that came back from the lack of overabundant mesopredators.
Yeah.
It's that trophic cascade you're trying to reinstate. But I did look it up.
Yeah.
So it varies from a good few hundred square kilometers to, in the Scandinavian species and the Russian species, again, subspecies, to like 2,500 square kilometers. So yeah, that's a big number.
Yeah, that's a large area.
Big number. In my personal research that I've been doing, looking into like how much room you really need, it tends to scale with the food availability when it comes to big predators.
Yeah.
If you are living in a place like a lot of places in mainland Europe, surprisingly don't have a lot of deer.
Yeah.
So those animals have to go over larger distances to find more food.
Yeah.
Not an issue. Not an issue here in the UK.
Especially with the density of roe deer
and all the invasive deer as
exactly.
well. And that's not even thinking about the hares and the rabbits and the various wildfowl they'll eat as well. Not that they're main food sources, but again, additional helps whilst you can't find your next roe.
Yeah.
But according to organisations like Rewilding Britain, Scotland the Big Picture, Scotland, especially the Highlands specifically, can support around 400 lynx. That is the current number.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have a lot more habitat than we think about, especially when we are stuck in our urban centres or certain areas that we're kind of like favouring as people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say that does surprise me, considering I think I looked up not too long ago that the UK is the 48th most densely populated country in the world.
48th.
So, which isn't as high as I expected it to be, considering we're not a very large group of islands and there's about 70 million people.
It's a lot of people. But to be fair, most of them are focused in these like urban hotspots where like these animals are never going to want to go. Like, you do occasionally get reports of large predators on the outskirts in the rural areas, but that's a rural area, not in the actual city itself. It is interesting.
Yeah.
But there is that magnificent, beautiful, nothing like it anywhere in the UK. In the north, in the Highlands, the Great Forest of Caledon.
Yeah.
Caledonian pine woods. Now that is perfect habitat for a Eurasian lynx. It is probably our most healthy national park in terms of having an ecosystem. But here's a con for you that some people have brought up. Have you put it on here?
I've just thought of it if it's what I'm...
Go on.
I'm assuming you're possibly suggesting wildcat numbers?
Oh, no, but
so
that
could be an issue. There's... What's the number now? Is it about 14 individuals in the wild?
That's not a big number.
It's not much bigger than that if it is. But that's certainly a population that if you were to release lynx into the Highlands of Scotland, which is where I believe the wildcats are found, then that could be an issue. I mean, admittedly, wildcat should, in theory, be able to get out of the way of a lynx rather easily.
Yeah.
But again, like you were saying, with foxes, with badgers, it's that mesopredator fear factor that could scatter wildcats out of what is potentially thought of as their main habitat by these much larger, cats. So there could be a potential imbalance for wildcats, which, is well, recorded that it's such a species that has been struggling for so many years.
Really, really struggling. I was also going to bring up capercaillie, which have gone extinct once in the UK, and that's another species people say, oh, you can't reintroduce lynx because it's going to devastate them. But what we need to remember is that they have co-evolved with the lynx in the environment. And as sad as it sounds, like, as long as we keep bolstering that healthy population of the capercaillie, we do have, like, populations we can reintroduce from, keep reintroducing them until it is stable again, because they do need the habitat.
Yeah,
and capercaillie do need the habitat that lynx provide, and so do the wildcats.
Yes.
I was reading recently in a good... I can't remember the name of the paper. It might have been in Nature.
Okay.
Wildcats do not do well in treeless spaces. They need woodland or scrubland with a lot of trees. And they very rarely go into heathland. They don't like heathland at all.
Right, okay.
So there's that benefit that the lynx brings, but also something that I came up when I was working on the book.
Yeah.
So it could help weed out the hybrids as well.
Okay, yes.
So, African wildcats, the progenitor of the domestic cat, did not co-evolve with lynx at all, and domestic cats are so far removed now that it can work as a form of natural selection. Potentially, again, this is potential, not written in stone, but animals that have more domestic cat in them, or just domestic feral cats wandering into the countryside that could pose a threat to the gene pool of Scottish wildcats, which naturally would be more cautious in these spaces, could be killed and weeded out by the lynx.
Yeah.
Because they haven't evolved the avoidance behaviors, the instincts to avoid lynx. That, again, this could be actually more of a boon than a benefit, more of a benefit than a hindrance. We could just be looking at it the wrong way.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, but I reckon it would be better to just release them for now in areas with less of these at-risk species, just to not tempt fate.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of like as a test run almost.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in like a large enclosed area to start with. See how they get on with species like
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that are not there. Fence them out, so to speak. But keep lynxes in with a good population of their food sources that they would need. See how it gets on, and then if it's working well, potentially then let the fences, get rid of the fences, see what happens.
Have that radio collar.
Exactly. Track them like they do with many different species around the world. It could work in that respect.
Yeah.
But again, who knows? There's many things that farmers are always going to be against it if there's no policy of some description put in place, where if they lose their an animal or any livestock, that they get reimbursed for that animal. If they can prove, look, we've lost a sheep, for example, to a lynx, here's the proof. Here's the proof. If they haven't got that benefit of getting paid for the loss of their animals, they're not going to get on board.
Exactly.
And as hard as that's going to be, because that's going to probably mean money coming from elsewhere, where's that money going to come from? It's a vicious cycle to get this to work.
It is.
Especially because our method of farming sheep, for example, is completely different to how it's done on the continent.
Except for the Netherlands and Belgium, which I'm pretty sure they're very, very close.
Quite possibly, but on the whole, it's quite different. And
there's no shepherds.
There's no shepherds out in the field with their dogs. Quite a few. Yes, people still use
sheepdogs to corral them.
Yes, but they're not out there protecting them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, this is exactly one of the things that need to tackle before reintroductions happen, because you don't want people going out and seeking them to hurt them anyway. You don't want revenge killings. Absolutely
exactly.
Not. And I know people often say, oh, where's the money going to come from? But there's so much money poured into things that are absolutely pointless, like trimming hedges. What is that? Why waste money? They do it on the road here. Like, if it's bleeding out onto the road, sure. But they often just do cut grass, trim hedges in the most stupid places that can easily be reallocated there. But even then, there's a lot of things that are being used examples on the continent.
Yeah.
There are volunteer groups. I forget, it's wolf something. It's focusing on wolves specifically, but they do help with other predators like bears and lynx if they do come into the region. But these volunteers, they help pay for, say, electric fencing around farmers' land, but they also help install it, because the farmer doesn't want to have to bother having to do that. That's a lot of effort.
Because they have to do it for the,
exactly,
even just to keep sheep in, let alone trying to keep something out from getting at their livestock.
Exactly, and this has been really good in Germany, where they've implemented this. It's Ulfa something or Wolfa something, I forget the name. But essentially, these people who are very enthusiastic about the animals, but they also care about livestock. Yeah. Like, they don't hate them. They don't see them as a hindrance. they are going out, they're helping them, they're starting conversations with the farmers, and a lot of minds are being changed or being opened up to the idea like, oh, I'm actually getting help here. And these people, they're not these namby-pamby city folk I thought they were, that are just like, oh, very removed from nature. We actually have a lot in common. We both like this species of bird and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that is something that I reckon the British public would be all over. The amount of people I've spoken to that want to be like volunteers doing stuff with nature, you could easily rustle up hundreds, if not thousands of people that would be up for helping these initiatives come along. And Rewilding Britain alone is actually a pretty big charity now.
It is indeed, yes.
And they have like a grant scheme where they give like £15,000 to projects to help get them off the ground. And imagine how much money they could help put into there. There's Scotland the Big Picture.
Yes.
And down in East Anglia, there's Wild East. There's so many different projects. You can't completely rely on farmers to be helped by NGOs, though.
No, absolutely
Government
not.
would need to do it. And they do have a responsibility to help with biodiversity here in the UK. I mean, I think the Conservatives brought in something called the Rewilding or the Reintroduction Task Force, which is kind of sitting on the back burner right now, but honestly, we could reignite that. Yeah. And that could really do wonders for reintroductions, not just of lynx, but also of species we've already reintroduced.
Beaver, for example, I'm assuming you mean?
Yeah, the fantastic beaver. Love a good beaver, mate. My favourite rodent.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, storks, eagles, all sorts of animals. I feel like as a nation, we don't give enough to nature. We have like, I think I can count on one hand how many wildlife crossings we have, like the big roads that go
there's not
over
many at all.
Wildlife bridges. Whereas in Banff, Canada, they have like 40 something just within one area. I'm not giving the best numbers or examples here, but in like a relatively small space by comparison to overall the UK, it's not a very fair comparison. But just in one park alone, more than in our entire country many times over. We need to start caring because apex predators can do a lot for our ecosystems, our landscapes, and our wildlife, and we need to start caring about that. Like, your family, did you say they've raised crops, or do raise crops, or have in the past?
Many years ago, I believe, but we don't anymore.
But big thing that I never see talked about is how apex predators like lynx can help crop farmers, because I forget the number, but it's in the billions how much money these farmers lose to deer, hare, probably a good few pheasants as well, out there eating crops.
Which is actually ironic because I was briefly looking up hares before this, and actually they need, because of the reduce of cropland during the war, hare numbers crashed.
So they need to rely on that.
They do, yes.
Well, at least the brown hare.
Yes, brown hare, no, not mountain hare.
Yeah, because fun fact, guys, if you didn't know, we only have one native species of lagomorph. That's the rabbits and hares, and it's not the rabbit. It's not the brown hare.
It's mountain hare.
Yeah, that's our only native one.
It is indeed, yes.
So yeah, if lynx come in and they start preying on brown hare, maybe there's going to be a farmer that goes out, sees them like, oh bloody hell, didn't know they'd do that. Don't have to shoot that now.
Yeah, that's true.
I do love these stories because there is a shepherd in Portugal. I forget his name. It's a very tough thing for me to remember names. But you can look it up yourself. It's been in the news a good few times. His favourite animals are wolves and sheep, because he recognises that that the wolves help keep the wild boar out of his land, because he also has an orchard and he has crops, and they often get raided by these other animals that not a lot of people think about as being a problem. Yeah. But they often are, especially if they're not kept on the move.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I did think of a potential other benefit for farmers if you were to reintroduce lynx. And I'm not sure if this is something that many farmers would really think about, because bovine TB is what I'm going to talk about, is because most farmers think, oh, it's badgers, it's just badgers, nothing else carries bovine TB. That's not true. Deer species also carry bovine TB, and with the density of deer in some areas, it's quite possible, not an absolute fact potentially, but it's very possible that bovine TB is given to cattle through deer rather than badgers.
And they can jump fences.
Exactly. There's just as much likelihood of deer coming into contact with cattle as badgers.
Yeah.
And if, considering that the lynx's main prey is roe deer, it would be very interesting to, see a study, on the continent where lynxes are and where cattle are, if they have any issues with bovine TB.
Yeah, and lynx are not tackling cattle ever.
No.
That's something that they wouldn't even tackle like large pigs either. So that's another benefit compared to like wolves. Like they just would never even target them, which is quite interesting. It's funny you bring up disease as well, because there is a disease essentially. It's only going to take time until it gets here. I guarantee it's going to get here because it's a prion disease, and they are scary. Chronic wasting disease in deer is like the zombie plague. It's called the zombie deer virus, even though it's not a virus. It's a prion, it's misfolded protein, and a benefit to having apex predators in the environment is because they will weed out sick and injured animals from the population. So it's great for deer. It's great for wildlife and livestock that can be affected by this, because it's the same thing that causes mad cow disease, and a similar thing in sheep that I think mad cow disease originally came from. It's like
blue tongue? Is it something like
I'm
that?
not sure.
I'm not sure, but
it's
we've certainly, in the UK, we've certainly had our fair share of, scares with livestock diseases. So if especially with bovine TB, it's a constant battle year in, year out for these poor cattle farmers. And we experienced it at home, having to test your cattle for TB all the time. And the test is completely and utterly useless. It's way past its sell-by date. It's never been that effective. I remember the family, when we had cattle, we had one reactor to the TB.
And they all had to go.
No, that one had to go.
Oh.
And we had the results back once it had been slaughtered. It didn't even have TB.
Oh.
And that's where the test is just completely and utterly flawed. And there's just no money, again, going into the research of that to improve a better test. So if you were to bring in a lynx and there is evidence to suggest that
they could limit the spread of diseases like TB.
Yeah, exactly. Then it would potentially mean that, not necessarily getting rid of this test, but it would mean, the farmers with cattle, that are always having to worry about TB may potentially have to worry less about it, especially if they're in areas where the deer populations are at their densest.
Exactly. And it's been reflected in literature again and again and again that places where you have these apex predators, more intact biodiverse ecosystems, you have less diseases bleeding out of said ecosystems and into livestock and people in general. We're seeing it, we saw it with every pandemic we've ever really had. Once you start messing up ecosystems, encroaching on wild habitat, and making places more homogenous, that's when you start getting diseases coming into the forefront, creating epidemics, pandemics, and there is a reason we get so many diseases propping up in the English countryside, affecting our livestock, which are related to these animals in some form.
Yeah.
African swine fever.
Yes.
That has come up a few times to Europe, and it is present in the Carpathians now.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken enough about that yet. But yeah, so when I was in the Carpathians, we did come across a lynx kill, which is really interesting. It was so fresh, actually, that when we discovered the kill, it was still warm and it hadn't gone through rigor mortis and its neck was still bleeding. This was a roe deer, fresh killed by a lynx. We knew it was a lynx because it got the throat. And, there was no traces of wolf prints. They were all lynx prints. And we got there really, really soon. and there were no lynx around. We couldn't see them, but they could see us. And I just kind of wanted to say that because it was really cool.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
But this actually echoes how everyone is really going to experience this.
Yes.
Even when these animals come back, you're never going to see them. You are literally never going to see these animals for the most part. There are people that go their entire lives living within the Carpathians, even like living in places like Canada with different lynx species. They're not going to see them. They are like the ghosts of the forest. They don't want to be seen by people. And often when they are just fleeting glimpses where you're not even sure you saw them.
Yeah.
And I remember like people being scared of swine fever when I was in Slovakia. But one thing that, again, wolves and lynx could help with lynx targeting the piglets, or boarlets, whatever you call them, piglets?
Piglets, I think.
And with bigger predators affecting the sickened, weakened, older individuals, that stops the spread to domestic animals.
Yeah.
We need to like just start looking at ways of coexisting because we will all benefit. In the end of it, we just, need to give support to people that lose livestock. That's never been something I want to overlook. That is something that we always need to do because by giving these incentives, like, you get help, you're not going to cause conflict. And another thing, sorry, I keep going, another thing. One of the cool things that I've seen on the continent used is grants, where it's just tolerant grants. These animals are in the ecosystem. They haven't necessarily attacked livestock. They may never attack livestock. But the farmers living in the area get paid to have them around. So there's incentive for them to exist within the space that you are farming. Which is, I think that's a great idea. Money talks at the end of the day.
Exactly, yeah, money does talk, but at the same time, how easily is that going to translate to the UK farming methods? And, because we are very, to a degree, still very old-fashioned in how we do our livestock farming in the UK.
I would agree.
To a degree.
I don't think it's old-fashioned enough.
Possibly not, actually, yeah.
We need those shepherds back. We need the livestock guardian people as well, like the cattle watchers, and that's a lot of opportunities for employment. Obviously not applicable on small farms entirely, because unless you get a government-sanctioned person who's employed by the government to look after your farm, a lot of the smaller farms probably wouldn't want to employ someone to do this job.
Certainly no, we wouldn't.
Exactly, yes.
We've got 37 goats, and a goat is not too far off a sheep's size.
Exactly.
So
a goat would probably be taken.
Exactly. So that's probably one of the reasons why I've always had slight concerns, is knowing that from I know it's slightly, biased and selfish reasons, but
you don't want Zebedee getting get.
Exactly.
That's the name of one of his goats.
Yes.
No, that's perfectly understandable. But in general, farming in the UK does need a bit of a shake-up with the way certain things are done.
Quite possibly.
Especially when it comes to like TB. The majority of those disease spreads are coming from just cows themselves spreading it to other cows.
Yes.
Within a very closed, densely packed system. We should take a leaf out of books on mainland Europe and start looking at how farming can be done in a more sustainable, more humane, more not just sustainable as well for the landscape, but for the people doing it.
Yeah. Because
too many big organizations, not really farmers at this point anymore, own the biggest, densest, packed, quote-unquote, farms, and it's the smaller farms that are competing with these big guys and having to make their populations more dense and put more time and effort into that. And they're not really competing with the landscape anymore or living alongside it. They're having to just go with what the big guys are doing because they're setting it. They're setting the price of beef, they're setting the price of mutton, they're making it hard for the little guys.
I can certainly vouch for that, as having grown up on a small farm myself.
There you go, see? So it's. I think we need to tackle the big industrial farming to make it easier for everyone else to get along.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah.
Do we have any last things? Because obviously, I think I'm repeating the same words over and over again. We are going around in circles.
There's just one other thing that we haven't mentioned, and that's any carcasses that are left by lynx.
Oh yeah,
are actually a food source for other species as well. So foxes, badgers, raven, other corvids, wildcats.
Yeah,
it produces a much more accessible food source for these other species that wouldn't necessarily be able to kill. Yeah, like deer meat. How on earth do we attack that? Oh, wow! It's just
eagles would love that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at certain area. I think they've done this at Wild Ken Hill. They've had a deer carcass and they've put it out in their landscape, and then Springwatch, when they've been there, have put cameras on it and have been videoing what species come
all
to that carcass.
Species, yeah.
So, and the lynx would just create a natural version of that.
Exactly, and that's just focusing on the bigger animals like the birds, like the foxes. But I have not seen a carrion beetle in a long time, in years.
Yeah.
They're beautiful things as well, like orange and black. The only reason I saw those is because I was doing like a survey for university.
Yeah.
But it would be great for all these species as well. The smaller guys.
Absolutely. Got to pick up the small guys.
Exactly. The little guys, they're important too. And scavenging ants, wood ants also benefit. They're an at-risk species and a keystone species in woodlands.
Yeah.
What lives in woodlands do, though, change things to lynx. So it's the key thing about the reintroduction of the lynx is understanding all the interconnected other species, that they have in those landscapes. And from an ecological standpoint, I think we can agree it would be beneficial.
Yes.
It would be fantastic for soil, for plants, for animals, for the entire ecology of the landscape. The hurdles come from the human aspect.
Yes, I think so.
And if we can get past that, then bloody hell, that's great. And it seems so far, we didn't even mention this before, that 72% of people in regions...
in the Missing Lynx project area, which is Kielder Forest, Cumbria, and southern Scotland, I believe.
Yes, thank you. They are in favour of lynx reintroduction, which is great to see from my own personal perspective.
I was actually very surprised that it was that high a percentage of people in that area. It doesn't necessarily say if that was everybody who was surveyed or what number of people was surveyed. I would like to know that, to be absolutely confident of that statistic more. But it's a good start. It's certainly something that I didn't expect to read. But sure, if they're the ones at the end of the day who could well be putting up with it, they're the ones that have got to be happy with it potentially,
Exactly.
And it'd be interesting to know of that 72% who
what
they
do
were.
They do? Yeah.
Where do they live in that area? Are they going to be anywhere near the reintroduction sites? Are they going to have a direct impact from the lynx being there, be they farmers or that ilk?
We also haven't talked about the tourism opportunities as well.
I did wonder ecotourism as well.
Yeah,
yes,
it has been a massive thing again in Germany and places where lynx have been reintroduced. People go out trying to see these guys, and again, I went out Slovakia trying to see them, didn't see a single one, but knowing they're in the environment, knowing them, they are around, actually does make a place feel so magical. Like,
I mean, even if you get to see a sign of a species,
it is so nice.
Yeah. As much as you think, I've seen the signs now, I'd really like to see the animal. The fact that you can, if you were to regularly see the footprints of a lynx, the scat of a lynx, that sort of, that would be pretty cool.
They do regularly rub up against. So there's these in areas where you have wild boar, lynx, and the other native big mammals. You regularly get these wares at the base of certain trees where boars have rubbed up against, and then the sap has started to drip from the tree, and it catches other animals like fur that has gotten on when they've rubbed up against, and we actually found some lynx hair on that. So even just looking at the little hairs, or a skeleton of something that it's killed, that alone, I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, and it would certainly, be a tourism boost. However, would the areas that the people would want to be going really want the people coming there? That's another talk for another day, as I've experienced for so many years where I grew up. Tourism is a
double-edged sword.
Exactly. So
you want to make sure these people come in, respect the landscape they're coming to.
Exactly, especially with it being something like a Lynx project,
Very much so, but I think this is the longest episode we've done so far, and we could continue to go on about it, but I think everyone's lynxed out.
I think we've covered everything. If there is anything we have missed, please let us know in the comments.
I'm just going to get up these other projects just to throw them out there for people to look more into it, because it's becoming a very real possibility that we will see Lynx reintroduced with how much this is building steam.
And especially with, with the illegal release, somebody's...
We forgot that as well!
Somebody's absolutely desperate to get them out there, that they're willing to illegally release them, which I do not condone one bit, I must admit, because from what you were saying about it earlier...
They're pets.
They're basically pets. They're now back in Edinburgh Zoo.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it right. It's got to be wild animals. The area's got to be right. Everybody's got to be on board as best as possible. There's got to be all of the funding, etc., in place for the farmers. If there are going to be any livestock issues, everything's got to be in place. And I don't think just yet we're at that point. And I don't think we'll be at that point for a little while, sadly. Potentially.
This is where I will disagree. I believe that in certain areas, not everywhere, again, probably not Gloucester.
No.
But in places like East Anglia, where a lot of the local people are getting on board, and again, Kielder, where it is mainly plantations anyway.
Wow, yeah.
There is more call and more positivity for this. And this is all highlighted. A lot more information about this is available at the Missing Lynx project. This is probably the biggest one that has kind of pushed this into the public zeitgeist. There's also links to Scotland that we briefly mentioned before. There's a bunch more. The Wildlife Trust, they are dipping their toes into this too, which is quite interesting. As they did with the beavers.
Yeah, and also just always check out Rewild in Britain for anything like this. They're
on the pulse.
Admittedly, it will be very one-sided, their view, but it does give you a good, hindsight as to what, could potentially happen. They're always up on, on the ball, like you say, with the news of what could potentially happen. So.
Exactly, and at the end of the day, I think one of the most important things is education on this species. What to expect. Because it wasn't, I think it was maybe a decade ago, or close to it, a lynx escaped a zoo. Yeah. The Eurasian lynx, same species as we would have here, and it was shot and killed for public safety.
Yeah.
And that is nonsense, because as we know, lynx have never attacked a person in recorded history. But because of the perceived danger of that animal, it was euthanized, which is a massive shame. And again, those people who illegally dumped lynx, these very tame animals, into the Highlands, they didn't know what they were doing either. No. So we need to get more people on this to understand it if it has any chance of being successful.
And in fact, do that illegal dumping of the lynx into the Highlands has actually probably pushed things further back for the Lynx project of wherever it's planned on happening. That pushed it back and made it more people probably anti-Lynx again because of the or anti of the people doing it.
Yeah, I would say more so the latter. You could look at it from the aspect of maybe it made it maybe more people started talking about it.
Yeah, in that regard, yes.
But again, this is not me condoning such a thing, because obviously unfortunately, one of the 3 animals released did die.
Yeah.
It did pass away, so no matter which way you look at it, that was a bad thing to do. But I think we have rambled our wildness enough for this episode. As you can tell, from both sides, again, not even your fence right now.
Definitely on the fence.
Your fence, I'm well in the side of, yeah, let's do it. But no matter where you look at it from this, it is good to have these conversations. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please let us know how you feel about Lynx reintroductions in the comments, and we'll get onto that in the future.
Yes, and also if you have any other suggestions for further episodes that we have not mentioned in previous episodes, please do let us know. We're always up for talking about anything natural world. We have had one comment on one of our previous episodes about bats in the UK, which we will definitely get onto at some point in the future.
Hell yeah.
Probably more sort of when they are actually out and about flying. It's certainly an area that I've developed a lot more knowledge, so yeah, we will definitely discuss that. But anything else, let us know.
Absolutely. And with the yowl of my cat in the distance, I don't know if that picks up, we're going to end the episode. So thanks for stopping by.
Cheers, guys.
And have a good one.